Friends, a hearty welcome to all of you today at the next edition of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. And today, a pleasure for me to welcome Mr. Dattatri Salagame, Managing Director, Robert Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions Private Limited. Dattatri is also responsible for Business Area Engineering 1, RBEI Strategy, IT, Digital Innovation and Location Strategy for Vietnam, Mexico. He's an engineering and software industry professional with over 25 years of experience spanning across a top Indian engineering consulting company, a startup, and a world leader in automotive. So good morning, Dattatri. Pleasure to have you with us for the next edition of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series.
Good morning, Rajesh. Always a pleasure to talk to VDMA and you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dattatri. Dattatri, I think the last 6 to 7 months have been totally unprecedented. COVID has hit all of us, has hit the global economy, hit the economy in India almost, almost 47 million people have been infected due to COVID. People call it the Black Swan event. So, if we were to come to RBEI, Dattatri, could you just briefly tell us what has been the impact of COVID on the operations of RBEI, especially since you have such a large workforce in Bangalore or in India? So, what is going to be the new normal now at RBEI, Dattatri?
Absolutely. I think none of us planned for it, right? So it hit us overnight. For RBI, we are an engineering company, product engineering company. So predominantly software, more than 90% is software. So we actually work on several customer-specific product engineering projects, as well as our own products. So when COVID hit, the biggest responsibility on us was to ensure that what was promised to customers is delivered. So because our principals in Germany and different parts of the world, Bosch business units depend on us heavily for the engineering work. So we had to ensure that the business continuity is assured. So for, let's say, first couple of weeks, RBI was looking like a logistics company, moving hardware and PCs and whatnot to individual houses. That was very effective. I never believed that all this is possible. In some way, we were tested for our own capabilities. A lot of latent capabilities on our connectivity and our ability to move things and all that. So we were up and running in about a week's time. 96% was the availability at any given point of time of our engineering workforce. From a business standpoint, we didn't really go down heavily. Of course, there were some marginal call-offs of projects, etc. But the engineering quantum of work that we do at RBI remained very solid. So, a drop of maybe about 0.5% or 1%, but barring that, we were very stable from the work point of view. So now what is new normal for us? One, as we discussed, I think work from home or working from anywhere, wherever you are, because there are many people who are sitting in beaches and vacation homes and working. So work from anywhere is a reality. So that's going to be a new normal for sure. What it has also done is how engineering is done. Changed to some extent how engineering is done. So concurrent engineering, which is really the how it works in terms of products, different global teams coming together now has a new meaning because it's concurrent even in India. They are not sitting together, so they're sitting in individual homes and yet making a product get realized. That's going to be new normal. I think the good thing is the workforce has got used to it. So there are many multidimensional benefits out of this, even if pandemic is behind us. So that's going to be a new normal for us. This has leadership behavior has changed, in my opinion, forever. Right. The trust quotient amongst between leaders and associates has gone multifold because You need to trust individuals, even if you don't see them in office, which is a big thing. That's a behavior, very positive behavioral change for leaders.
Right.
If you look at um, from a point of view of how do we run our business,
Right.
I think forecasts have only so much meaning. So we will get used to an extremely way dynamic forecast, and somehow we have to build a robust, uh, very elastic responses for continuously varying forecasts. So
Right.
this is also going to be new normal, because this concept of planning for the whole year and trying to live up to the plan will be challenged.
Right.
So already in the VUCA world, we had come down from 5-year planning cycles to 3 years. But now we are looking at how to plan multiple times in a year, uh,
Right.
which is, uh, which is also going to be new normal.
Right. I think a very valid point, Dattatri. In fact, my interaction with some of the business leaders, now they say we cannot even plan for the whole month, end of the month, leave behind the quarter. So
Yeah,
it's every 2 weeks we have to review what is happening, and the
yeah,
forecasting for the year or forecasting for 6 months. I think these are going to be very difficult in such time. And
yeah,
also, I think a very interesting point, what you mentioned, Dattatri. I think there is going to be much more coordination among teams, what we may not have seen earlier, and with several business units coming together, as you mentioned, also with your team in India
yeah.
interacting with the head office and the other global teams.
Mhm.
I think these are going to be some of the major changes which we would see as we go, even maybe post-COVID period also, because I think
Yeah,
this collaboration factor would get strengthened over the period of time.
absolutely. Yeah, 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 collaboration, and that brings
Yeah,
trust. Based on trust, that I trust you that
absolutely.
you're working from your home, because we are not software industry. At least is not an, I mean, the industry where you breathe, you really follow up on an hourly basis what individuals are doing.
Right.
Uh, so when people are working from home, you really trust that people are working from home and they're managing. So the only way is that you poll for how our customers are feeling about our work, and
Right.
then you know it. Now, good thing is, we speak to our customers almost every month and ask them, what are the challenges, etc. And most of them are pretty happy about how things are working out of India.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, coming to Bosch, Dattatreya, Bosch has a very old tradition, a well-established tradition in India, and I think the first manufacturing setup operation was started way back in 1951.
Yeah,
You have a very catchy tagline also, "Invented for Life."
yeah.
So I just wanted to request you, could you elaborate a little bit on this tagline,
Yeah,
Dattatreya?
I think it really embodies the spirit of what Bosch does. A company which is 150 years old, and which has survived a couple of world wars, and stayed firm on certain belief systems, very unique business structure, not being listed and all that. So, very, very strong focus on innovation, very, very high focus on value system. So Invented for Life actually uh, basically focuses on quality of life. How can Bosch enhance quality of life in whichever product or service that we do? So anything that has no correlation to quality of life, or has a negative correlation to quality of life, we are not there at all. No, so you will never see Bosch in defense or anything which is not related to, even has a slightest negative correlation towards life. So that's why you see we investing in new areas like healthcare to solve some of the most complex problems. How can we diagnose cancer, for example, very early? How can we diagnose diseases early?
Right.
Can we democratize healthcare and make it more affordable, quick screening, etc.? So invented for life for us is our, let's say, is something which goes into the genes or into the minds of every Boschler, uh,
Right.
which is a guideline for everyone about what we do and what we don't do.
Right.
It's a great spirit to get connected with life in principle. Products normally speak about quality and consumer, customer, and whatnot, but this is about life.
Right.
That's
Right.
extremely supreme. When we think about a tagline, so it's
Hmm.
much beyond a tagline. It's really it's a something that is part of life for every Boschler.
Right, right. And I think important aspect of that is also that they're keeping the humans in the focus also. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Dattatri, if we look at the we call COVID as the black swan. Now, one of the impacts of the black swan event has been that the supply chains have got disrupted. Um, so, if we are looking at possibly digital transformation, we are looking at smart manufacturing. Now, how can smart manufacturing address these challenges arising out of disruptions of supply chain, Dattatri?
That's an extremely good point, Rajesh. I think there used to be these valleys of information disconnect, right?
Right.
In enterprise or between enterprises, there used to be these valleys of this information disconnect, where information just, is dead, and there's disconnects between enterprise in the value stream. So people have realized that it's extremely important to digitize your value stream and be able to communicate without too much of information. So that understanding of the necessity of digitizing your value stream is pretty strong.
Right.
So because people focused in the way one of digital on the core of enterprise, which is basically your ERP systems and something around ERP, etc. But the operations part was always looked at as a second necessity, because if you don't have an ERP system, you can't close your balance sheet and you cannot file your returns from the company. So it is absolutely necessary. But let's say if you don't track the machine and do predictive maintenance,
Right.
but the company still goes on. But what pandemic has done is that it has made people realize that it's an extremely important to connect all the dots in value stream, not just what is relevant for your compliance purposes. So, having said that, uh, I think there is still a lot of pressure on the bottom line and cash flow in industries. So while they appreciate and recognize the importance of digitizing, I wouldn't imagine that every company will now go and implement full-blown Industry 4.0 or factories of future, etc. But there will be still a lot of discretion around it. But you may not have to educate them the need, but we may have to figure out most elegant solutions, cost-effective solutions, architectures which are a hyper-local, tuned for hyper-local needs,
Right.
so that you manage the cost. Just one example, the MSMEs or so, they are under so much of stress.
Absolutely.
Why you can't keep them out of a digital revolution, but at the same time, you need architectures which make sense for them. You know, so that's something which I see as a wave which will follow now.
Right. And would you have offerings also, Dattatreya, which are catering specifically for the MSMEs? Because if we look actually, technology adoption is one of the biggest challenges for MSMEs because of various factors, be it the cost factor or lack of skilled
Yeah,
manpower. So,
yeah.
how are you catering as Robert Bosch Engineering, Dattatreya, to offer solutions to the MSMEs?
Yeah, see, we realized this very early, because large companies like Bosch or any other big company, we always weigh data security, privacy, or let's say what should be inside our enterprise secured versus what is the benefit of having it shared. But
Right.
when you look at smaller industries, convenience of having shared infrastructure is very huge. What we have done is that we are using AI and the sensing technologies to really create what I can call as an Industry 4.0 platform for MSMEs or SMEs,
Right.
where you can actually operate on shared platform. Because I always believe that industry digitizing your factory or factory value stream is a journey. It's not just a switch that you turn on, right?
Okay.
So if when it's a journey, you can start small and figure out what is relevant for you, what is valuable for you, and you can have on-demand services turned on only for yourself, like you do, how you subscribe to channels
Right.
or OTT platforms. So that kind of commoditizing Industry 4.0 or digital factory for SMEs is our focus. So I mean, we are creating a shared platform, smart connectivity solutions, on the edge AI algorithms which can actually predict what's happening on the machine and provide early alerts on productivity, on machine health, etc. So we are in the early stages of adoption or conversation with many of these industries. I would see this would be very relevant for SMEs as we go forward.
Right. And it is, I think, also that that's very much needed because the MSMEs, if we look at the MSME structure in India, we have more than 63 million MSMEs operating in India and almost 35 to 38% contributing to the GDP, employing about 120 million people. So unless the MSMEs grow, I think the growth is also the industrial growth would be difficult for India. And I
Absolutely. See, another thing is the wave one of digitizing, where people went for ERP.
right,
You didn't really look at the ecosystem.
right,
You cared for your enterprise. But when
right.
you are looking at supply chain, you need to care for your ecosystem. So it's
Absolutely.
not just you, it's your supplier. Only then you realize the value of connectivity and digital change in manufacturing.
Right, right. Dattatri, today there was a very interesting article in the Times of India where there was also, you have spoken on that, especially of the tech centers for the German automotive industry. And I found one statement very catchy there that automotive is expected to be 60% software driven by 2030 from the present 40%. So, how is what do you share this view, Dattatri, and what is the development work that RBEI is doing in this field, Dattatri?
Absolutely. I think the software content in touch and feel products is going up by big time, right? Because the value is being realized by lifetime value of a product, continuous upgrade of a product. So the software content is going up big time. So if you take a car or any vehicle, you look at vehicle like a mobility gadget,
Right,
and in the past it used to be a very static feature model, but in future what we see is a vehicle is connected and vehicle can get upgraded. So and vehicles, when I say connected, they are connected to different things, vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure. So this omnipresent connectivity between vehicle and the surroundings makes vehicle a much more intelligent gadget. So a runtime upgrade of vehicle features is going to be the future, and RBEI is working on several topics on this. When you look at the driver assistance, now we're working on as things such as autonomous driving and also several other driver assistance features. Electric is another big transformation for us. We're working on electrification of vehicles. So the power system of a vehicle changing. It could be electric or it could be anything else. It could be fuel cell or anything else. So the engineering that is relevant for that. And also conversion, this paradigm shift of mobility gadget being a pure mobility operators and being very static to a multi-purpose gadget which is not static, which is constantly being upgraded. we are contributing a lot on and around these topics.
Right, right, right. And for these projects, Dattatri, the teams are working together with the various global centers also?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are very close knit at the project level with teams in Germany and in other locations as well. As I said, some of them are customer specific projects. Then you're very close to customers. It could be Japan or China or or even in India. Uh, some of them are products where we are very closely working with the teams in different parts of Bosch.
Bosch, right. Dattatri, coming to the e-mobility scenario in India, how do you see the development of the e-mobility in India in the next period? And one more question here is, Dattatri, what are two or three policy initiatives that can lead to scaling up of e-mobility and e-vehicles in India?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure my colleagues from RBI and uh, I think the cost of ownership is the barrier, right? Now,
Right.
today, see the cost of ownership of electric vehicle is one of the barriers for adoption. And so there are methods to, government is thinking of several approaches to bring down the cost of ownership. One-time investment. So they are saying the batteries should be outside the electric vehicle, and the consumer should have a choice for the batteries. So on, as a service models are coming in electric vehicle. The second biggest thing is the charge anxiety. That is getting, I mean, the government is also working on opening up of charging stations to many sectors.
Right.
So you will see that a lot of private sectors who will participate in charging stations, energy as a service. So the charge anxiety and cost of ownership are the two big things, which are slowing down the adoption. But I'm sure these policies will help to scale it up.
Right, right. So in the future, you feel that the e-mobility would get a boost in India, because till now we've been talking about e-mobility, but I think India has made very little progress when we compare also the number of e-buses. I was just reading somewhere that China procures every year about 450,000 e-buses, whereas we have just, I think, done hardly 300 or 300 e-buses. So I think we are lagging much behind, although we've been talking about e-mobility for quite some time. So you feel that in the next phase this would get a push also.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think public transport is, I think that would be one of the areas.
Right.
The private ownership we discussed,
Right.
the cost of ownership and the charge anxiety. And also on the commercial vehicles, smaller commercial vehicles would, I would also believe two-wheelers, two-wheelers would see a change much faster than the other segments. So the two-wheelers perhaps could be changing it, adopting e-mobility faster.
Right, right. Um, Dattatri, since you have a large workforce here operating, and generally we talk about the lack of skill set available in India. So what I would like to ask you, Dattatri, is what is your personal perception of skill set availability in India? And maybe what would be your suggestion or guidance to new graduates who are coming out? What new skill sets? Because I think the whole gamut we are talking of reskilling, de-skilling, and I think the skill sets required in the future would change also. So, what would be your suggestion to the new graduates here?
Mhm. Mhm. So I think India would have to look at, go back to specializing. The generic skills that we used to see, which was, there's a huge wave where the generic skills were required, like programming, in the area of software and IT industry. But I think it's important that we adopt specialization as a by design, because will the new forms of engineering and software development be characterized by huge volumes? I don't think so. So it will get a lot more niche, and it will be a lot more value engineering. It may not be volume engineering as it used to be in the past. So when it is niche and it is much more deeper and domain specific, I think certain degree of specialization would help. Suppose you are a BTech, and if you have learned Python and you've had some tools experience to get into AI, but that's not enough. So can you actually design algorithms? Then can you have specialization in math so that you are able to design algorithms, not just program an algorithm designed by somebody else. I think that shift is required. Also, orientation for product engineering is something which we have to focus, because we are largely driven from skills and service oriented for service industry. But I think the next wave would be product engineering. So if you have to be good at product engineering, I think the design principles of products and the end-to-end product engineering capabilities is something which is required for the next wave of engineering, including software in India. So if I suggest the young university folks coming out, one is specialization. The second is focus on product engineering, end-to-end product engineering.
Product engineering, right. And if we talk about the availability of skill set in India, or let's say specifically in southern part of India, what would you say here, Dattatri?
See, we always have skills available, because the paradigm India has set, which is good in some sense, and it is also a disadvantage in some other sense, is that we quickly scale up. Any technology that comes up anywhere around the world, India scales up very quickly, because we have a huge supply of educational institutions, training institutes. So quickly, the availability, the supply side quickly ramps up. But the thing is, it's also characterized by, volume. A lot of people go and get trained on the same topic. So, will this be the model in the future? That's again, I come back to the previous question that you asked. No, is it training, or is it a quick understanding is good enough? Is the question. Because India has to get more and more into the core of product engineering capabilities, rather than stay on the periphery of these topics. If you are on the periphery all the time, certain generic skills are good enough. But then that is, we can't be there all the time. So if you want to get into the core of product engineering, India has to focus on deeper understanding of product engineering and the technologies that are coming in. So if this model in India of commoditizing any technology by sheer volume of training and skill up, I mean that's necessary, but that's not the only thing that industry needs.
Right, right. So Dattatri, coming perhaps to the last question for today, with so many unforeseen factors colliding together at once, Dattatri, it is quite a challenge presently for CEOs to guide the company, guide the people. We have factors of safety, health issues, business. In the stormy water of COVID, Dattatri, what would be your three leadership tips which can help leaders and CEOs to guide their companies, respective companies, in this period of, I would say, unpredictability and unforeseen circumstances? So I think if we would request you to share 2 or 3 tips, because I believe this would be extrememely beneficial to our viewers as well as the CEOs of the German companies operating in India, Dattatri.
I think the I mean, I think one of the biggest skill would be, or trait would be to not to cast your beliefs too deep.
Okay.
When your beliefs are extremely deep, then you are not nimble-footed. You
Okay.
know, you are not anymore agile. You know,
Right.
you are so deeply cast that you can't move. So it is
Right.
better to keep, you have a hypothesis. It is better to work on scenarios and hypothesis rather than on strong belief systems, which can change at very short notice.
Right.
The second is, I think, to build a culture of unlearning and learning in the organization. A constant unlearn culture is going to be a competitive asset for any enterprise. How quickly an enterprise can unlearn and learn will become a competitive edge for an enterprise.
Right.
So I think it is important to foster that culture. The third would be, I think, the organizations have to become a lot more networked
Right.
and not, many a times we are a contained organizations, organizations in a box. But I
Right.
think we need to unbox ourselves and network ourselves with globally with many other partners
Right.
inside our own companies and outside our companies in
Right.
the ecosystem. So to run an enterprise as a network will become a necessity as we go forward.
Right. Right. I think thank you very much, Dattatri. I think we're really valuable tips. Be agile, then the culture of learning, unlearning, and networking. You cannot operate anymore in a silo system. You have to be networked with other enterprises also.
Yeah.
Dattatri, thank you very much for sparing your time and being with us and sharing your views and insights also. And in this edition of VDMA Thought Leadership Series. So, on behalf of the German Engineering Federation, VDMA, and my personal behalf, all the very best to you and the team, Dattatri. It is, I think we all know it's going to be a little difficult year. The next year and a half are not going to be so easy for India to come out of the COVID setback. But I think the future holds a lot of promise also, and we can just hope that even after the festive months, of course, the last 2 months have created a lot of happiness among the automotive industry and various sectors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But whether it is short-lived, is it only the impact of the festive season, or
Yeah.
can this be sustained even in December and the coming months?
Yeah.
So I think we just have to see how holds in the future also, Dattatreya. But the very best to you and the team, Dattatreya, and thank you for being with us today, Dattatreya.
Thanks, Rajesh. Always a pleasure. Take care.
Right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.